Now, whenever you're dealing with the end times, you're in the field of study known as eschatology. Eschatology is the study of the last days or the end times. You see, the Greek word eschatos means last in time or place or the end. So eschatology is the study of the last days or the end times. Now, eschatology is a very difficult subject because to really understand the end times, you must have a comprehensive understanding of God's Word. In other words, you need a good knowledge of the entire Bible and especially the Old Testament. The truth is, you cannot understand the book of Revelation. Neither can you understand the book of Daniel without, or I should say, the Olivet Discourse without a good understanding of the Old Testament. And the book of Daniel holds the key to unlocking many of the mysteries of the end times. Now, let's be honest. Most pastors have a limited knowledge of the Old Testament. They know the major stories, but that's about it. So most pastors never teach on eschatology, and I didn't for the first 20 years of my ministry. I have a bachelor's degree in biblical literature with an emphasis in historical theology. How many of you know the difference between historical theology and systematic theology? Historical theology is how our theology developed over history. Most of the things that were pounded out happened as a result of heresy. So as a result of that, the church would get together and they would see what the scriptures had to say, and our doctrine was pounded out based on the scriptures. But historical theology is studying it as it developed throughout the church age. So I have a degree in biblical literature with an emphasis in historical theology. I have a minor in New Testament Greek, 34 hours. And I have a master's in theology, which is systematic theology. But what's kind of interesting about that, even when you finish all of your schooling, you just have the foundation. You really don't know that much about the Old Testament. And so most pastors who are coming out of seminary, they have a very limited knowledge of the Old Testament. They know the major stories, but that's about it. So most pastors never teach on eschatology. And as I said, I didn't for my first 20 years because I didn't have an adequate database of knowledge of the Old Testament. But I continued to study outside of my sermon preparation. Most pastors don't do that. They only study the Bible in order to prepare sermons. But I felt like God was telling me, you need to study the Bible outside of what you're studying for your sermons. And so I would do that until I was ready to teach on the book of Revelation, verse by verse, and the book of Daniel. Now, I don't consider myself to be an expert on eschatology, but I do believe that I know as much, if not more, than those who consider themselves to be experts on eschatology. And now, eschatology is one of my favorite subjects.